Welcome to the deep dive. Ready to do some time traveling.
Always.
Today we're going way back, like thousands of years, to see if some ancient wisdom about family dynamics still holds up today.
I love this kind of stuff. You never know what little gems you'll find buried in the past.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we're looking at the I Ching.
The I Ching. An ancient Chinese text. People have been turning to it for centuries for guidance on, well, pretty much everything. Life, the universe, you name it.
Yeah, it's almost like a philosophical toolbox or something, providing all these different lenses to view life's challenges and opportunities.
That's a great way to put it. And for this deep dive, we're zeroing in on one specific part of the I Ching, the 37th hexagram. It's called Jia Ren, which translates to the family.
The family, huh? Sounds like it's right up our alley.
It is. Think of it like a time capsule packed with insights into how families work, how to make those relationships thrive, and how to navigate the inevitable bumps along the way.
And what I find so intriguing is that these insights, even though they come from a very specific culture and time period, still resonate with us today.
They do, don't they? Even as family structures themselves are changing and evolving all the time.
All right, so let's crack open this time capsule and see what's inside. The Jia Ren hexagram is made up of 2 trigrams, right?
Right.
Jia, which represents wind, is on top, and Li, representing fire, is below. Now, I gotta admit, symbols can be a bit tricky for me sometimes.
Yeah, they can be. But they're also super powerful. They can pack a lot of meaning into a single image.
So what's the significance of this wind and fire pairing? What's the message here?
Well, wind often represents a subtle but persistent force. It shapes things gradually over time. Like, think about how wind can carve canyons or sculpt those amazing sand dunes. It's a force that works slowly, steadily, but ultimately very powerfully.
Okay, so it's not a sudden burst of energy, but more of a consistent guiding influence.
Exactly. And then we have fire below, which of course we often associate with the heart of the home. Warmth, energy, nourishment, that kind of thing.
I'm already seeing how these two could play off each other in interesting ways.
Right. You have this gentle but persistent force of wind, almost like a steady hand guiding the family. And then this fiery energy of the hearth, providing warmth and sustenance. It's a really powerful image.
It is, and it makes me think about leadership. We often think of a leader as someone who's very fiery and forceful.
Yeah, that's the classic image.
But the I Ching is suggesting that true leadership can also be gentle, persistent.
More like the wind shaping the landscape over time.
Exactly. And that makes me wonder about roles within a family, Are we too quick to say certain qualities are masculine or feminine when maybe it's more about finding a balance of these energies no matter your gender?
That's a really great point. I think the I Ching is definitely pushing us to consider those kinds of questions. It's not about rigidly sticking to those traditional roles, but more about recognizing how these different forces can interplay within a family, creating a more dynamic and balanced environment.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, there's another line in the Jia Ren hexagram that really caught my eye. It says, diving into the sea to find pearls and flowering plants bearing fruit.
Oh, that's a beautiful one.
It is. It's such a vivid image. But what's the deeper meaning there?
It's a metaphor, of course, but a really powerful one. I think it's speaking to the idea that building a strong and thriving family takes effort. It takes patience. It's not something that just happens magically. Those pearls of connection, the fruit of well-raised kids, you don't just stumble across them.
It's like diving for pearls. That's hard work. It takes skill, perseverance, maybe even some risk, right? And then cultivating a garden, nurturing those plants to bear fruit, that's a process. You can't just scatter seeds and expect a magical harvest without putting in the work.
Exactly. You've got it. And that message is more relevant than ever today. In our world, everything's so fast-paced. Everything's instant. We want results now. But the Jia Ren hexagram, it's telling us to slow down, be present, take the time, invest the energy, because those deep, meaningful connections within our families, they're worth it.
It's such a powerful reminder. Life gets busy, and it's so easy to let those important relationships slip away.
It happens to the best of us.
But Jia Ren hexagram is like, hey, hold on a second. This is important. This is worth putting in the effort because those relationships are precious. They deserve our time and attention.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the time and attention we give as individuals. It's about how we as a family work together to create an environment where everyone can flourish. It's not just about being physically present. It's about actively building something together.
Like how the wind and fire need to work together.
Yes. Each element contributing its own energy to create something lasting and beautiful. It's a powerful image.
It is. So we've got the wind and fire, this balance of energies. We've got the pearl diving, the garden cultivating, the reminder that building strong family relationships takes effort and patience.
Yeah. And the Jia Ren hexagram doesn't shy away from the challenges either. Like there's one line that says, the oracle advises not to take things at face value as if viewing flowers in a mirror.
Ooh, that's interesting. It's a little cryptic, but I think it's getting at the importance of communication and empathy within a family. It's so easy to just assume we know what our family members are thinking or feeling because we see them every day. Like, we think we've got them all figured out, but it's not always that simple, is it?
No, it's not. Even the people closest to us can surprise us.
It's like that optical illusion. You see a vase, but then suddenly it's two faces. Our perception shifts and we see a whole new image.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And that's what empathy requires, constantly shifting our perspective, challenging our assumptions, really trying to see things from the other person's point of view, even when we don't necessarily agree with them.
And that's hard work. It takes effort, especially in today's world where communication can be so fragmented. It can feel really superficial sometimes. We're constantly bombarded with information, but are we really taking the time to truly listen to each other?
Yeah.
To really understand what's being said, especially within our own families?
It's a good question. Are we just skimming the surface of those relationships? Or are we willing to dive deep and seek those pearls of understanding?
Because those pearls, they're down there, but they're not always easy to find. And the Yi Jing, the Jia Ren hexagram, it's offering us some guidance. It's not just about the words we say, but about the intention behind them, the willingness to see and hear each other even when it's uncomfortable or challenging.
It's about recognizing that family is complex. It's a tapestry woven from all these different perspectives and experiences and emotions. And to truly appreciate the beauty of it, you've got to be willing to look beyond the surface and delve into all those intricate details.
It's about the details, the nuances, the things that make each family unique. And, the Jia Ren hexagram, it's honest. It acknowledges that family life can be difficult. There are times when those relationships are really tested. It doesn't just paint this rosy picture of family harmony. It gets real about the challenges.
Oh, for sure. There's this one line that's always stuck with me. Transactions may progress slowly, and marital relationships may break up. Travelers may disappear without a trace.
Wow. That's heavy stuff.
It is. And I think it's important to acknowledge that those challenges, they're part of the family experience. Even in ancient times, people were dealing with loss, with separation, with uncertainty about the future.
It's comforting in a way, isn't it, to know that these aren't just modern problems, that families have always dealt with this stuff.
It is. It makes you feel less alone somehow.
Right. Like, it's part of the cyclical nature of these relationships, the ebbs and flows of connection and distance, the joys and the sorrows, all of it.
So it's not about pretending that the challenges don't exist or trying to force our families into this perfect little mold.
Mm-hmm.
It's about accepting the reality of those difficult experiences.
Exactly.
But at the same time, remembering that we have the strength, the resilience to support each other through them.
Like, we can find ways to come out of those challenges stronger and more connected than before.
Like the wind and the fire, working together to create something truly remarkable.
Exactly. And that brings us to another key point in the Jia Ren hexagram, the power of cooperation, the importance of mutual support within the family.
That image of the wind fanning the fire, each element playing its part to create a more powerful force.
It's a beautiful image.
Yeah.
And it speaks to how families can work together, each member bringing their unique strengths and talents to the table to create something truly extraordinary.
Yeah, it's not just about the big moments, the crises, the celebrations. It's about those everyday acts of kindness, the shared responsibilities, the little gestures of love and support. It's those things that weave the fabric of a strong and resilient family. So we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
The need for balance, the importance of putting in the effort, the patience, the role of communication and empathy, and recognizing that even when there are challenges, there's this deep well of strength and resilience within the family.
That's a great summary, but we've only just scratched the surface. The Jia Ren hexagram goes even deeper, Each of the individual lines has its own interpretation and application to family life.
Ooh, that's exciting.
It is. And that's what we'll be diving into in our next deep dive.
Can't wait.
Me neither. Back again for more Jia Ren.
Ready to keep diving deeper.
Absolutely. It's amazing to me how this ancient text still feels so relevant today.
I know, we're talking thousands of years old, and yet so much of what it says about family dynamics still rings true.
Right. It's like the core principles, they're timeless.
They really are. Okay, so last time we were talking about those core principles.
Right. Balance, communication, empathy, the whole deal.
But now I'm wondering, like, how do we actually use all this wisdom in our modern lives?
Okay, yeah. Let's get practical.
Like, families today, they come in all shapes and sizes. We've got blended families, single-parent families, multi-generational households. The traditional nuclear family, 2 parents and a couple of kids, that's not the only model anymore.
Nope, not at all. It's so much more diverse now.
Exactly. So how does this ancient text, with its emphasis on more traditional family roles, speak to that?
Well, what's remarkable is that the core message of Jia Ren, it's not actually limited to any specific family structure.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Like those principles of balance, cooperation, mutual support, recognizing the value of each member, those can be applied across different family models.
So it's not about trying to fit ourselves into this one predetermined mold.
No, not at all. It's more about adapting those principles to the unique circumstances of your family.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. So let's say you're a blended family merging 2 households. That's a big adjustment for everyone involved.
It is.
And Jia Ren offers some guidance for that. Like, remember how we were talking about the importance of communication and empathy?
Yeah.
That's even more crucial in a blended family because each member is coming from a different place with different experiences, expectations, needs.
Like you're trying to blend 2 different recipes. Got to make sure the ingredients work together.
Exactly. And it's not about erasing those individual experiences. It's about finding a way to weave them together into a new tapestry.
Okay, but how do you do that? How do you create a space where all those different voices can be heard and respected, where everyone feels like they actually belong?
Well, it starts with listening,
Yeah.
really listening, taking the time to understand the other person's perspective, even if you don't agree with it.
Right.
And then patience, recognizing that this blending process, it doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take some time. It's a journey of discovery, of adjustment, of growth.
It's like that metaphor of the wind and the fire again. You need both. The gentle persistence of the wind and the intensity of the fire. And they need to work together, not against each other.
Precisely. It's about finding that balance that allows both forces to contribute their unique energies. And in a blended family, that balance, it might look different for every family.
Of course. Every family is unique.
Right. So there's no one-size-fits-all solution. It's about figuring out what works for your specific blend of personalities and experiences and hopes and dreams, all of that.
So we've got blended families, but what about long-distance relationships? How does the Jia Ren hexagram speak to families that are separated by distance, like miles, time zones, continents even?
That's a really interesting question, and one that's becoming increasingly relevant, you know?
Yeah, in our globalized world, families are spread out more than ever.
For sure. While Jia Ren doesn't directly address long-distance relationships, I do think the underlying principles can offer some insights.
I'm curious to hear your take on that. Like, how do you maintain those strong family bonds when you're not physically present all the time?
Well, remember that image of the wind fanning the fire. The wind is this gentle force, but it can travel vast distances and still have a huge impact.
Oh, okay.
So even when we're physically separated, we can still have a powerful influence on our relationships. It might require more conscious effort, more intentionality, but those connections can be nurtured and strengthened, even from afar.
And technology can definitely play a role there. Video calls, texting, sharing pictures and experiences online.
Absolutely. It's like building a virtual hearth.
Right, like a virtual gathering place for the family.
Exactly. But it's not just about that virtual connection. It's also about those tangible efforts to show our love and support. Sending a handwritten letter, a surprise care package, making time for a phone call just to hear each other's voices. Those little things can make a big difference.
It's about reminding our loved ones that even though we're not physically together, we're still thinking about them. We still care.
And those connections, those bonds, they're worth nurturing, no matter the distance.
Okay, so we've got blended families, we've got long-distance relationships. What other modern challenges are there?
Well, even when families are physically close, life can get pretty hectic.
Oh, tell me about it.
Work, school, activities, social media, all of that.
It's a lot. It's like a constant whirlwind of activity. And it's easy to let those important family connections slip away.
And that's where the Jia Ren hexagram's emphasis on intentionality comes in. We have to be deliberate about creating space for family connection. Remember that line about attending within to the food?
Yeah.
It's not just about the literal food. It's about recognizing those essential needs of the family and making a conscious effort to meet them, even when life gets crazy.
So even if we're super busy, we've got to carve out time for family connection.
Yes, it's about making those choices, prioritizing what really matters.
It might mean setting aside specific times for family meals, maybe establishing some tech-free zones, or just making a point of being fully present when you are interacting with your family.
Even if it's just for a few minutes, those little moments can make a big difference.
It's about saying, hey, I see you. I'm here. Let's connect.
Right. And those moments don't have to be elaborate, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the simplest things are the most powerful.
Yeah.
Sharing a meal, reading a story, having a conversation, no distractions.
Creating those little rituals, those touchstones.
Exactly. It reminds us what's really important, especially amidst all that chaos of daily life.
So we've talked about a lot of modern challenges, blended families, long-distance relationships, just the craziness of daily life. And what strikes me is that the Jia Ren hexagram, it really does offer insights that are relevant to all of that.
It does, doesn't it?
Like this text, it comes from a totally different time and culture.
Right.
But it's speaking to us now.
Yeah. And that's what's so amazing about these ancient texts. They tap into something fundamental about the human experience, something that goes beyond culture, beyond time.
Like even though the world is constantly changing, certain truths stay the same.
Right. And one of those truths is the importance of family, the need for connection, belonging, love. That's universal.
It's like the Jia Ren hexagram. It's offering us a roadmap.
Or a set of tools.
Yeah, to help us navigate the complexities of family, both the good stuff and the challenges.
Absolutely. It's a journey, that's for sure, but a journey worth taking.
Okay, so we've explored these core principles. We've looked at how they apply to modern families. But now the big question is, how do we actually put all this wisdom into practice?
Okay, yeah, that's the next step.
Like, how do we take those ancient principles and turn them into concrete actions?
How do we build stronger, more resilient families in the real world?
That's what I want to know. And luckily, we've got one more deep dive to go.
We do.
So stick with us, listeners. We'll be back soon to tackle that very challenge. Back again for the final part of our deep dive into Jia Ren.
I can't believe how fast it's flown by.
Me neither. But we've covered so much ground already. It's been amazing to see how relevant these ancient ideas still are.
I know. Like, it's almost like they were written for us, you know?
Yeah.
For modern families grappling with all the complexities of life in the 21st century.
Right. So we've talked about balance, communication, empathy, resilience.
All those core principles.
But now I'm like, okay, how do we actually put all of this into practice? How do we take those ideas and make them real in our everyday lives?
Ah, yes, the million-dollar question. How do we translate all this wisdom into action?
Yeah.
How do we build stronger families, not just in theory, but in the real world?
Exactly. Like, give me the tools, the strategies, the how-to guide. Where do we even begin?
Well, let's start with something we've touched on throughout this deep dive, something that Jia Ren really emphasizes: communication.
Okay, communication. That's always a hot topic when it comes to families.
It is, but it's easier said than done. Right.
Totally. It's like everyone says, oh, you need to communicate better, but then life gets in the way. Work, school, activities, kids glued to their screens.
Right, exactly. All those distractions. It's like, how do you cut through the noise and actually have meaningful conversations?
That's what I want to know.
Well, I think it starts with being intentional, like actually making time for those conversations, scheduling them in even.
Wait, scheduling family time? Like putting it on the calendar?
Exactly.
Hi.
I know it sounds a little weird, but trust me, it can make a huge difference.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Think if it's a family meeting, maybe once a week. Everyone gets together, no distractions, and you just talk. Share what's going on in your life, what you're struggling with, what you're excited about. Just check in with each other.
So instead of trying to have those deep conversations in the middle of the dinner rush or yelling across the house, you carve out a dedicated time and space for it.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be super formal. You can keep it light, have some snacks, make it fun. The point is to create a consistent space where communication is valued and prioritized.
I love that. Family meetings on the calendar. Okay, what else?
Well, even with the best communication strategies, let's face it, conflicts are bound to happen.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're all human, right? We're going to disagree sometimes.
Exactly. And that's where empathy comes in. It's like that line from Jia Ren about not taking things at face value. Remember that?
As if viewing flowers in a mirror. Yeah, I remember.
Right. That's especially important when you're dealing with conflict. It's about pausing, taking a breath, and really trying to see the situation from the other person's perspective.
Even if you don't agree with them.
Exactly. It's not about saying that your own feelings aren't valid. but it's about acknowledging that there are multiple perspectives at play. And if you can tap into that empathy, if you can truly understand where the other person is coming from, it can make a huge difference in how you approach those conflicts.
So it's not about avoiding conflict altogether.
No, conflict is natural.
It's about learning how to navigate those disagreements in a way that actually strengthens the relationship.
Right. Like, think of it as a puzzle. You have all these different pieces, different perspectives, and you're trying to fit them together. And sometimes those pieces clash a bit.
Yeah. But you can't force them. You have to find a way to make them work together.
Exactly. And that's what empathy allows you to do. It helps you see those different perspectives, those different pieces of the puzzle, and find a way to create a complete picture.
Wow, I love that analogy. Okay, so we've got communication, we've got empathy. What other tools does Jia Ren give us?
Well, another big theme is balance, like finding that equilibrium between leadership and nurturing within the family. And that can be a bit tricky, especially today, with all the different ways families are structured.
Right, like the whole mom's the nurturer, dad's the disciplinarian thing. That's kind of outdated, isn't it?
It is. It's not about rigidly sticking to those traditional roles. It's about recognizing that both leadership and nurturing are important for any family to thrive. And those qualities aren't tied to gender.
So it's more about figuring out the unique strengths and talents of each family member.
Yes. And finding ways to share those responsibilities. Maybe dad's the one who's super nurturing and loves to create a cozy atmosphere, while mom's the one who's great at setting boundaries.
Or maybe the kids are old enough to chip in and take on some of those responsibilities too. It's about teamwork.
Exactly. It's about being flexible, adaptable, recognizing that balance is not a fixed point. It's a process. It's about communicating, adjusting, finding what works for your family.
And that brings us back to that key idea from Jia Ren, the importance of effort and patience. Building a strong family, it takes work, it takes commitment, and it takes time.
Right. It's not a quick fix. It's like those pearl divers. They don't just jump in and find a pearl right away. It takes skill, it takes perseverance, and it takes a willingness to keep going even when it gets tough.
And it's not just about those big dramatic moments either, right? It's about all those little everyday things.
Exactly. Sharing a meal, reading a story, having a conversation without distractions.
Those are the moments that really matter.
They are. They're the building blocks of a strong family. And it's about celebrating those little victories, offering comfort when things don't go as planned, just being there for each other through thick and thin.
Creating those rituals, those little moments of connection.
It's about making those moments count. Because they do. They really do.
It's amazing to think that a text this old can offer so much wisdom for families today.
It is. And it reminds us that no matter how much the world changes, certain things remain constant. The need for connection, the desire for love and belonging, the power of family, those are timeless.
So whether your family is big or small, traditional or unconventional, near or far, the Jia Ren hexagram, it's a reminder that strong families, they're built on these foundational principles: balance, communication, empathy, resilience. And those principles, they're universal. They can be applied to any family, anywhere in the world.
Absolutely. And it's been such a pleasure exploring those principles with you today. I hope this deep dive has given our listeners some food for thought, some tools to work with, some inspiration to build even stronger connections within their own families.
Me too. It's been an incredible journey through the Jia Ren hexagram. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.